I've been a traveler all of my life, and for the last 13 years, I've been a travel journalist, workshop leader, speaker, videographer, everything that a professional travel addict would do. And I've been lucky. I've been able to contribute to over 100 publications. I wrote a book called Life is a Trip, The Transformative Magic of Travel. And what really interests me is how travel can be transformative for you. So I want to give you an example. Last year, we were on the island of Malakula, and it's in the remote island chain of Vanuatu in the middle of the South Pacific. And very few tourists go there in the course of a year. The men were adorned in penis sheaths, the women were bare-breasted, and they open-heartedly performed their dances and their songs, which contain their legends and their history. And when they got finished, they all gathered around me and my husband, and I asked my usual 2,650,000 questions, and I just realized something is wrong with this model of travel. You go, you see, you ask questions, and you leave. So I decided to change something. And I said to them, how about you ask me questions about the world I come from? Well, they're very, very shy. And they said they'd never really asked anybody questions before. And I said, go ahead. Any question is good. So one of the men comes close to me, and he says, is it true that you also killed bin Laden's son? I was so stunned by this question. They have no internet access. To the best of my knowledge, there's no television. How did they even know what question to ask? And then I began to think about, what are we really doing when we're traveling? Let me give you another example. A couple of years ago, we were on our way to Tunisia, and it was right after the revolution in Tunisia that began the Arab Spring that, of course, you all know about. And we got into the plane, it was late at night, the door of the plane closed, and the captain announced that there were demonstrations in the capital of Tunis, that the main streets were shut off, and there was no way that you could get to anything in the center of town. And I thought, oh, that's really nice, that's where our hotel is. So because I am not shy, I got up on my knees in the airplane seat, and I turned around, and I spoke to the entire plane, and I said, help, help, help. Does anybody know of another hotel in Tunis where we could stay tonight? And one of the women open-heartedly said, hey, come to my house, you can stay at my house. And the next thing I knew, I don't know how it happened, I was standing in the central aisle of the plane. Everybody in the plane was from Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya, except for us. And they started lobbing questions at me about democracy because that's what they're fighting and dying for. And they said, what should we expect in democracy? Could you tell us more about the process? Can you tell us what to watch out for? I thought, yeah, a lot of things. Can you tell us, can you tell us what's down the road? And then they said, can you also explain to us why Americans are so afraid of Arabs? And that moment, that was when I had my second realization. I realized deeply that we're not just tourists when we travel. We're like ambassadors. We're peacemakers, anthropologists. We're even storytellers. We present points of view that people don't usually get a chance to see in the media. We can communicate, for example, that we may not agree with our official government policy. We may actually be the only person from our country they will ever have direct personal contact with. And then I tumbled into the awareness that travel is not just go and see and experience and leave, but it's a two-way street. It's an interactive experience, and that's true even if we just travel to the next town. We have absolutely no idea what is in people's hearts and minds. People want to talk. They want to tell you about who they are and open up with their stories. We can ask them meaningful questions, and then we can invite them to ask us too. When we answer honestly, it's an invitation to more questions and exchanges and deep listening.
something can happen for them and something can happen for us. We can interrupt our habitual way of thinking and take in new information about life, and we can do the same for them. It's the beginning of the possibility of transformation. We could learn about different ways of raising kids, or celebrating weddings, or saying goodbye to the beloved dead. But wait a minute, you're probably thinking. What if you don't speak the same language? How do you communicate then except through a guide? Recently, we were in Myanmar, or Burma. Visitors were going by boat to meet members of the Padang tribe, where the women wear these bronze coils around their necks that make their necks look stretched and elongated. There was an older woman with about 12 or 14 coils, and next to her was a young girl. So everybody jumped out of the boats, and they ran over and they took pictures of the exotic women, and then they went off to shop. So I noticed that the young woman was standing by herself, and I walked up to her. I smiled, and she smiled back. And then we sat down on an old wooden bench together. Our guide had taught us a few words of Burmese, and one of them was the word for beautiful. So I said the word, Lade. And she giggles, and she points at me, and she goes, Lade, Lade. I go, no, 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 no. Lade, Lade. She goes, no, 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 Lade, Lade. And we both just burst out laughing. And then I took a little piece of paper, because I'm a compulsive, obsessive note taker. So I took out a little piece of paper from my pad, and I wrote 3 words in English. I wrote, you are beautiful. And I said to her, I showed her, you is you, beautiful Lade. And I took the piece of paper, and I handed it to her. She took that paper, and her eyes welled up, and she stared at the paper, and she folded it up into a much smaller paper, and then she held it to her heart, and she put it in her clothes. And I realized, wow, this is unbelievable. I write 3 words on a piece of paper, and she considers it like a precious gift. And when I think back on Myanmar, that's what I think about. I think about this young Padang girl and the miracle that we were able to communicate and share a real moment in time over 1 word. The experience really was, for me, Lade. And the question becomes, how do you, we all have very different personalities, how do you engage people so that some kind of real exchange between you and other people can happen? The first thing is you have to stop. Do absolutely nothing. Instead of running, just stand there and observe. Just look. Maybe there'll be a family that's on a picnic, or maybe there'll be kids who are engaged in playing some kind of unusual game. Or maybe it's just the person next to you in a bus. Just stop whatever you're doing and observe. And then see that person. Instead of that person just being one of billions of humans who are on the face of this earth, what you do is you notice one person or one small group of people. And then just allow yourself to be really curious. Be interested. Ask a real question, like, what's the name of this game? Or, is it difficult to play? Probably 50% of the time they're going to pull you into the game, so bingo, right away you're engaged. Or you may see somebody with a book and say, are you a student? Are you studying? What are you studying? Really listen to the answer. Or you can go up to a policeman and say, is it difficult to be in the situation here? Is it difficult for you to be a policeman? And anything that requires a real answer and shows that you have genuine interest in the other person, that's exactly the way to start. And you're not going to ask other questions about the Taj Mahal, but you're going to ask more questions about the person, and the person's going to ask you. You will see, I promise, you can come after me in Santa Fe, New Mexico if this doesn't work. And maybe you could go up to a woman in the street and say, where did you get that silver bracelet? And chances are, she'll take you to the store exactly where she got it. That's what happened to me very recently. And then ask, if they, very important, do they have questions about you and about the world, the life that you come from?
what you do, it's a great gift. Just like this little piece of paper was a gift for the Padang girl. You lift people out of invisibility. And you open up the possibility of seeing each other, not as stereotypes. You know, this is a Mexican or an American or a French, but as individual. You give a person the gift of recognizing her or his individuality. And what you're really doing is you're bringing calm and peace and respect to the world and to the people in it. There's tremendous excitement in very, very small things. If you allow yourself to be interested in what is not you, what is not your context, what is not your way of seeing the world, not your way of doing things. Instead of the other, you know, people talk about the other. Instead of the other being someone that you want to keep at a distance from you, the other becomes a magnet. And you are drawn to the other person exactly because the person is not you. The smallest details of what is a potential opportunity for exchange, experience, and learning. It's not in the big things. It's in those little things like, wow, that's a really good haircut. It is a very good haircut. Or where did you get those unusual glasses? Just little tiny things. That's how you open it up. And once you have experienced the excitement and the curiosity about the other, you're there. You have developed a traveler's mindset. And this is what can inform your daily life. Maybe you go out in the street and you see somebody in a turban. That's a magnet. Or you see a woman who's wearing a burqa. Magnet. Or you see kids who are breakdancing in the jardin. Magnet, magnet, magnet. It's all a magnet for you. And your everyday life will become a trip, a voyage, an opportunity to expand on your horizons and open your heart just by being genuine and curious. That is all it takes. So over the course of years, I have spoken to a lot of older people, and I always ask them the same question. Can you tell me what the high points were of your life? And I was astounded to see how often those high points were trips they had taken, places they had gone in the course of their life. I remember somebody told me that it was when she was in a classroom in another country helping to teach kids English. Somebody else said that it was when, it was a man, he said his bus broke down and they were all panicked, but all the local population came and helped them repair the bus and gave them food. That was one of the highlights of his life. And another woman, she was laughing when she told me, she said that she traveled to an exotic country and they all wanted to take a picture of her because they considered her to be exotic and they wanted to have a photo of her. And my conviction is that travel is not separate from life. Life is travel, travel is life. Wherever you go, wherever you are. The goal is to make your individual life a deep and exciting trip. So you can start immediately. When you came in here, you were given an index card. Walk up to somebody whom you do not know, person maybe you've never seen before in your life. Introduce yourself and ask a meaningful question. We have some examples for you here, but I'm sure you can come up with questions of your own. And listen to the answer. And then invite the person you are speaking to, I'm going to watch to see if you're doing this, someone you do not know, to ask you a question and give a genuine, honest answer. Take the index card and write down what you have learned. And then outside there's a bulletin board and there are push pins. And just post what it is that you have learned. And let's read about what all of us were able to learn in just a few minutes of time. So I'd like to close with something that I learned in Norway recently from a man who is a Viking, a nowadays Viking shaman. And the language it's in is Old Norse, so forgive my accent in Old Norse. And it goes like this. The blessing goes like this. Vinda varma, mächtige marde, bringe venskap för alla, bringe weiten für alle. I wish you the blessings of wisdom and friendship. Bon voyage. Thank you. Thank you, honey. Thank you. Thank you.